All right, welcome to part 18 of my overview of the Bible story. What happened last time? Well, remember King David gathered together all the materials for the temple, and then he died. Now Solomon is king of Israel. Do you think he's going to be a good king? Well, let's just start by reading the Bible. That's my favorite thing to do, just reading the Bible. So that night God appeared to Solomon and said to him, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Solomon answered God, "You have shown great kindness to David my father, and have made me king in his place. Now, Lord God, let your promise to my father David be confirmed, for you have made me king over a people who are as numerous as the dust of the earth. Give me wisdom and knowledge, that I may lead this people, for who is able to govern this great people of yours?" Wow. Sounds like he's a pretty humble guy, right? God, give me some wisdom. To rule your people, God. They're not my people. Your people, God. Sounds great. God said to Solomon, "Since this is your heart's desire, and you have not asked for wealth, or possessions, or honor, nor for the death of your enemies, and since you have not asked for a long life, but for wisdom and knowledge to govern my people, over whom I have made you king, therefore, wisdom and knowledge will be given to you, and I will also give you wealth, possessions, and honor, such as no king who was before you ever had, and none after you will have." Man, so here we see God promising Solomon, you're going to be the top dog, Solomon, higher than all the kings before you and all the kings after you. Look at that. Such as no king who was before you ever had, and none will be after you. Whoa, that's quite a statement. So, wow, looks like Solomon's gonna have a good time. Remember, his name means Shalom man, peace man. He's gonna have peace in his kingdom, right? So Solomon accumulated chariots and horses. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he kept in the chariot cities and also with him in Jerusalem. That's kind of nice. He's got a lot of horses, right? 12,000 horses. Wait a minute. Do you remember Moses and the book of Deuteronomy? Moses had said this: "The king, moreover, must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself." Oh. Well, they're just horses, right? Solomon's not going to take many wives like his father David did, right? He's not going to make that mistake. Remember, the wives turned David's heart away from God. Solomon's not going to make that mistake, right? Well, let's find out. What's he going to do next? Well, he's going to build the temple. Then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David. It was on the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite, the place provided by David. All right, and remember, Mount Moriah was the place where Abraham had built that altar. Remember, Abraham and Isaac were there. Anyway, so this is where the temple is going to be built, and he builds it. Great job, Solomon. Solomon builds the temple of the Lord. So it's there. It's on Mount Moriah. Now, where is it exactly? Well, some people Some people think the temple was exactly where this building with the golden roof is now. Some people think it was right there. Some people think it was a little bit further north. Some people think maybe it was a bit further south. But it was somewhere here on Mount Zion. Okay? And it was facing east. Okay, so this is facing east toward the Mount of Olives. Okay? So there it is. So Solomon, he dedicates the temple. He gets all the musicians. Remember, David had chosen all the musicians and get them all ready for the worship with their instruments and stuff like that at the temple. So Solomon gets them all together, and Solomon does a great prayer. He says, God, you're so loving toward us. You've helped us so much, and now would you please hear, the prayers of your people here. Come and be here, even though you're, God, do you live in like a building made by human hands? You live in a house like this? No, you live in the heavens and stuff like that. You're much bigger than this. This place isn't fit for God. But Solomon understood that God wanted to be with his people. So even though, God is much bigger than living in a building like this, God's presence did, Solomon understood that God did want to live here, just like in the tabernacle. God was up, high in the, it was impossible to contain God, right? It's not possible to build like a house for God to live in, but to some extent, it was God's own choice, to build the tabernacle and to build the temple, and Solomon understood that. It wasn't Solomon's idea. It wasn't even, David did want to build this house, but it was really God's own idea to live here on this holy hill on Mount Zion. It was God's idea, right? So Solomon prays, look, God, please hear your servant's prayers. Hear the prayers of Israel. Hear from this place. And if the people can't come here physically and be here, anybody who prays toward this temple, wherever they are in the world, if they're kind of praying toward this temple, please hear their prayer and answer their prayer. Okay, so beautiful prayer. They dedicate the temple, and then it says this: when Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. The priests could not enter the temple of the Lord, because the glory of the Lord filled it. When all the Israelites saw the fire coming down and the glory of the Lord above the temple, they knelt on the pavement with their faces to the ground, and they worshipped and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, He is good. His love endures forever. Okay, so they physically saw this, like the glory of the Lord. Fire kind of coming down, and like, it's hard to imagine what it looked like, but anyway, that's what they saw. Okay, now God says this to Solomon: as for you, if you walk before me faithfully, as David your father did, and do all I command, and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne, as I covenanted with David your father, when I said, you shall never fail to have a successor to rule over Israel. Okay, so God is saying, look, Solomon, if you follow my ways, if you're with me, I'm with you. This is going to be great. And then he says, but if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commandments I've given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. So this is exactly what Moses had said, right? When you enter the land, if you're faithful to God, we're going to live in this land forever. God's going to be faithful to you. But if you forsake God, if you go worship other gods, you guys won't last very long in this land. God's going to kick you out. So here he's telling Solomon, I'm going to uproot Israel from my land, which I've given them, and I will reject this temple. Wow. So this temple that Solomon just built, it kind of depends on whether the people are going to be faithful or not, right? This nice temple, God can reject it if the people abandon him. Guys, this is pretty serious. So, God keeps telling Solomon this temple, wait, am I still recording? I'm still recording. This temple will become a heap of rubble. All who pass by will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them. Okay, so God is making it absolutely clear to Solomon and to all the people, if you don't follow me, if you go after other gods, okay, then that's why I'm going to bring disaster on your land and your temple and everything like that. That's the reason. It's not because you did something, whatever. It's because you worshipped other gods. That's why. Okay, it's the idolatry. Remember a few episodes ago we talked about the biggest sin in Israel's history is going to be idolatry. Bowing down to idols, just like they did at Mount Sinai in the desert when Aaron made that golden calf to make the people happy. And they all bowed down to the calf. Said, oh, thank you, cow, for saving us out of Egypt. So this is crystal clear. Okay, so people aren't going to wonder, oh, why are you doing this? They know. If they serve other gods, they're done. Okay, so the question we have is will Solomon and Israel be faithful to God? What's your prediction? Honestly, do you think they're going to be faithful to God for a few generations, maybe 100 years, 500 years? What's your prediction? I mean, Solomon, he's not going to take many wives, right? Because they would turn his heart away from God. He's just going to have one wife, right? 700. He takes 700 wives and 300 concubines. A concubine is a woman you sleep with who's not your wife. Remember David had maybe around 20 wives or something like that. The text doesn't say exactly how many he had. Maybe he had 30 or 40. We don't know. But 700! Why does anybody need 700 wives? Guys, that's so many. That's 1,000 women. Together, 1,000 women. That's a lot. That is a lot of women. This is what the Bible says. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of his father David had been. Remember, David's heart, David did make some pretty big mistakes, but he repented. Remember, David always repented, and he gave God his heart back. I'm sorry, God, forgive me. Remember, he said, create in me a new heart, O God, a clean heart. and restore a right spirit within me. Remember, we looked at Psalm 51 a couple of episodes ago. We don't see that attitude from Solomon. He just his heart turns from God, and we don't really see him repenting. So he followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Moloch, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as his father David his father had done. Okay, so he just built the temple. Everything's going good. Israel's at that very height of its empire, at the height of the kingdom. And now he turns his heart away from God. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this is your attitude and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates." Guys, I will tear the kingdom away from you. But, nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. Yet I will not tear the whole kingdom from him, but will give him one tribe for the sake of David my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. Okay, so do you understand what God is saying here? So, Solomon, I'm very angry because you've forsaken me, but because of my love for David, I'm not going to do it in your lifetime. It's going to be your son, okay, who I'm going to take the kingdom away from. But I'm going to leave your son with one tribe. So which tribe do you think that is going to be? Well, the city of Jerusalem is in the tribe of Judah. So we already know it's going to be Judah and Israel. They're going to be separated. They're going to be kind of separate kingdoms. Oh man, guys, this is really bad news. So we can already predict that Israel is going down, and Israel will get kicked out of their land. We know this, right? It's going to go down, down, down. How far down? I mean, when is this going to happen? Is it going to be the next generation, or is it going to be a few generations afterwards? Well, we kind of get the feeling it might be a while in the future, because God is saying he's going to leave one of Solomon's sons with one tribe, and then the rest is going to be Israel. Like if he kicks them out of the land, then they're all gone. Then none of them are left, right? Probably. I mean, we're just kind of making predictions here. We're not entirely sure how the story's going to go. But, yeah, I don't know. Guys, let's see what happens in the story. But now remember the book of Psalms? That book is attributed to David. David wrote probably over half of the book of Psalms. But other people wrote some Psalms as well. Well, Solomon wrote 3 books, okay? Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs. Okay, now the book of Proverbs is attributed to Solomon, even though other people wrote some Proverbs as well. Okay, so Solomon didn't write all the book of Proverbs, but he wrote most of the book of Proverbs. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what each book is about. So Proverbs is about how to live wisely. Okay, I'll just give you one example of a verse here. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Now, did Solomon Solomon wrote this. Did he follow his own advice? Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and all your ways submit to him. No, he didn't do this. His heart turned away, and he did not submit to God in all his ways. So God had given Solomon incredible wisdom. Like, this is just an overview series. If you want to read the whole story of Solomon, you can read about it in the books of First Kings, and I think it's Second Chronicles. I think first, because there's a kind of an overlap between the books called First and Second Kings and First and Second Chronicles. Okay, sometimes I get both sets of books a bit mixed up in my mind. But anyway, you can read the whole story. This is just an overview. Let me just check. Still recording. Okay. Solomon didn't submit to God, but he wrote a lot of good stuff. He just didn't follow it. That was his problem. So the book of Ecclesiastes, it's about the meaninglessness of life without God. It's just, the word meaningless is over and over in the book. Meaningless. Everything is meaningless. But let's see how the book ends. Okay? It ends with these words. Okay? Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Okay, so, Solomon, he was the great, wise king, wise teacher. He did everything. He tried everything just to see, okay, what's good in this world? What's great and what's worth doing? He says everything is meaningless. Just do this. Fear God and just try to follow God. And then remember that God's going to bring everything into judgment. God remembers everything people do. Okay, so that's Ecclesiastes. Now the book of Song of Songs. So this is also a short book. So the book of Ecclesiastes and Song of Songs, they only take maybe 10 or 20 minutes to read if you want to read through them. The book of Proverbs, that might take you about an hour or two to read. Okay, so Song of Songs is just a love poetry between Solomon and a woman. Okay, now we don't really know who this woman is. We don't really know much about this woman. Maybe it was one of his wives. So I'll just give you a little snippet of what it kind of sounds like, what a verse or two sounds like. Come, my beloved, let's go to the countryside. Let's spend the night in the villages. Let's go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. Okay, so this kind of book, this book is kind of interesting because it kind of changes the voice. First, the woman speaks for a bit, and then Solomon speaks, and then their friends speak, and then it kind of goes back and forth between the woman, Solomon, and the friends. Woman, Solomon, friends. So it's it's kind of a cool book. I like it a lot. So guys, those are the three books that are kind of attributed to, or that he wrote. King Solomon wrote. Now, the end of Solomon's life. Look at this. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, named for his father. Then his son Rehoboam became the next king. Wow. So Solomon's dead, guys. His reign was, he was the man of peace. It wasn't really him that got peace. It was God who gave him peace. Even though he did some really bad stuff and built altars and worshipped false gods. Like he went up on the Mount of Olives and he built a god. He built his heart was really evil toward the end of his life. Can you imagine? He built the temple to Yahweh. and he knew the covenant. He had the book of the law. He knew what he was supposed to do. But then he loved many wives, foreign wives. He had a wife from Egypt and from different countries. And they wanted him to build, altars to their gods and stuff like that. So, he goes and builds some altars here and there. And they turned his heart away from the God of Israel. Man, it's just, his life is just so disappointing. It's really disappointing. So now he's dead. And Rehoboam, his son, becomes the next king. So guys, now we know we're going down. But so if we just look at the last few episodes, remember King Saul became the first king. We thought, man, this guy's great. He's really handsome. He's tall, but then he kind of fell away from God. And then David, the great king, the great shepherd, his heart wasn't, he kind of made some big mistakes, but he repented. And then his son Solomon reached like the height of the kingdom of Israel. And his heart turned away from God. And now we know we're going down a long way. Yeah, so guys, buckle up. The next few episodes are about to get pretty depressing. They're gonna get depressing, guys. So, I don't know. What did you see that coming? Did you predict this? Well, guys, there it is. I love you so much. Hope you're doing great. Thank you for watching. Let's see where this story goes. We're in it together, right? Thank you very much. And as always, I'll see you over in the next episode of Mark's Bible Overview. Take care.